a yellow object spotted floating in the sea and found that it is not a raft after all. Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur early Saturday, bound for Beijing, and then it simply vanished with 239 people on board. So far, investigators have yet to discover a single piece of wreckage. What they have discovered is that at least 2 of the passengers were traveling with stolen passports. Malaysia's Minister of Transportation spoke at a news conference a short time ago and said a multinational investigation is in full swing.
The response from neighboring countries and also international agencies have been overwhelming. Coordinating this have not been easy, but I'm very happy to report that things are moving very, very fast. And let us pray that we get some more positive results in the near future.
We're covering all angles on the story. CNN anchor Jim Clancy is following the latest twists and turns in the investigation from Kuala Lumpur, while Justice correspondent Pam Brown is in Washington, D.C., looking at how someone could board a plane with a stolen passport. But first, let's take you to CNN's David McKenzie. He joins us now from Beijing. And David, families of the passengers are waiting for news, and right now there are more questions than there are any answers.
Well, that's right, Manita. There's been a lot of false hope as the search and rescue, now presumably search and recovery efforts continue. That latest information shows that there wasn't a life raft out at sea, and that certainly will give less hope to the family members here. Already authorities have told them here in Beijing that they should start preparing for the worst. More than 150 of the passengers on board were Chinese nationals. Many of the families of those missing are in this hotel behind me, and they're expressing frustration, not talking much to the media, but we managed to talk to 2 of them. Take a listen.
I'm not going home until I know what happened. We've lost loved ones, and they need to answer our questions. When are you going to tell us? And what are you going to do? We still don't know if they are alive or dead.
Still no information and still waiting. I am not happy with the airline's arrangements so far.
The airline's just saying that they're going to work with Chinese authorities to help people who do not have travel documents to get passports. They might be sending a plane late tonight, early tomorrow morning at China time. But many people we spoke to say they're going to stay put because there is just no sign of where that plane might be, and they don't want to go to a foreign country where they don't speak the language and not get any information there. We spoke to one psychologist, a volunteer counselor, who said the hardest thing is this open-ended question.
I think first and foremost is a quick resolution, because this not knowing is probably the most agonizing.
Well, that not knowing is really, Manita, what has grated people for days here after the initial shock, and then obviously the sadness. It's that frustration after many hours of waiting, and from what we hear from investigators, it could take many, many days to find exactly what happened, many months even. And so very little closure for these families of the more than 239 passengers and crew on board that ill-fated flight. Anita?
All right, David, thank you. David McKenzie there live for us from Beijing. And so we know now that 2 of those passengers aboard Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, well, they were using stolen passports, and both bought their tickets just last Thursday from the same travel agency. Interpol has tweeted that it's now examining additional suspect passports that may have been used to board the flight. Pamela Brown reports.
It's one of the biggest mysteries in the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. How in a post-9/11 world did 2 passengers board an international flight with stolen passports? Even more surprising, they were in plain sight among the names listed in Interpol's lost and stolen travel documents database. One since last year, the other since 2012. Both stolen in Thailand. And it appears the 2 passengers who used the passports of an Italian and an Austrian citizen bought their tickets together.
When you book your ticket, the airline is not able to actually make an inquiry with Interpol or even the local police about whether you are wanted or whether the passport has been reported stolen. The country, the government does.
And according to Interpol, last year alone, passengers were able to board planes without having their passports screened against Interpol's databases more than 1 billion times. The database at Interpol headquarters in France contains an astounding 40 million records of stolen travel documents.
You know, the member countries, the 190 members that belong to Interpol, are not charged a fee for accessing any of those databases. So if the country has sufficient resources and technical capability to wire into Interpol's virtual private network that's running 24 hours a day, then, you know, they certainly would be able to access that database and check it. It's just up to the will of the country to set it up and do it.
Interpol Secretary General Ronald Noble said, now we have a real case where the world is speculating whether the stolen passport holders were terrorists, while Interpol is asking why only a handful of countries worldwide are taking care to make sure that persons possessing stolen passports are not boarding international flights.
Pamela Brown reporting there. Now, investigators are saying they are ruling nothing out. Jim Clancy joins us live from Kuala Lumpur, where the plane departed very early Saturday for Beijing and then simply vanished. And Jim, we are continuously getting these news conferences from Malaysian authorities, but yet they don't have any answers on this 2 days after the fact.
No answers. There's an abundance of theories. There are an abundance of clues. We keep hearing about possible wreckage sighting. They move in, they inspect it more closely, and we find out that instead of an overturned life raft, it ends up to be underwater cables. So it's been very frustrating especially for the family members. Now, hundreds of them have begun to arrive here in Kuala Lumpur, flying in from Beijing. But as they search for the answers, and let's be honest, they're really searching for their loved ones. You know, there are no answers here because there is no solid progress that has been made in the investigation. All of this despite the fact that they have fielded, 40 ships today, 34 aircraft or more from a total of 9 different nations, some of them very sophisticated, and they're crisscrossing the South China Sea, searching for evidence of debris and not finding it. We have the issue of the passports. That continues to develop. Clearly, it's being investigated. First of all, on the level of who were the 2 people who used stolen passports to get on board the jetliner. What were their motives? Why were they there? Were they involved in a people smuggling ring? In fact, there's a people smuggling ring being investigated by Thai police. That's where these passports went missing originally. So you have investigations that are branching out. Was it terrorism? There's been no claim of responsibility, no credible claim anyway. At the same time, that veering off course, well, if it veered off course, was that because hijackers had taken control of the aircraft? These are all unanswered questions. These are all theories. They're not the answers that people are seeking right now. Manita?
Yeah, Jim, in situations like this, more often than not, time is obviously crucial, especially when you want to get to any potential survivors. And then it starts out being a search and rescue operation, turning into a search and recovery operation. But in a situation like this, where there is no airplane, there is no body of wreckage right now, give us an idea of the kind of, you mentioned the kind of investigation that's taking place with the ships crisscrossing the oceans. What more are they doing?
There's not much more they can do. Let's really be honest about this. It's a vast area of ocean. You know, it took months and months for them to locate that jetliner that disappeared off the coast of Brazil and went down on its way to Paris. This is a situation, there are some advantages though, because the waters there in the South China Sea are much more shallow. So that's an advantage. But you look at this and you say, this could be a months-long project. This may not be easy. No one may hand this to us. It's just that everyone, I think, expected to find a trace, to find some sign. They find it hard to believe that that flight took off and an hour later, it disappeared on the radar. It's a deepening mystery and a troubling one too, Manita.
Absolutely. I think everyone finds it hard to believe that a plane like that could just simply vanish. Jim, thank you very much for that. Jim Clancy there, live for us from Kuala Lumpur. You are watching